Metaphysics and Imputed Righteousness. Samuel G. Parkinson put together this article, and he's kind of talking about Baptist sacramentalism, and then he's getting into the nominalist realist debate within the critics that push back against the Protestant understanding of imputed righteousness. Specifically, he's focusing in on the Reformed tradition. In this one section, Parkinson says this: forensic imputation brings weight to the promise of union with Christ. It communicates that when a person is united to Christ by faith, they are united to rock solid hope, a real, perfect, active, and passive obedience which guarantees propitiation and righteousness, full justification. Further, union with Christ personalizes imputed righteousness. It communicates that the perfect, active, and passive obedience of Christ is not an abstract garment that Christ weaves and the Father drapes onto the believer, but Christ himself is the garment. So it's not this God's just declaring that you're righteous because of your faith. You're actually in Christ. And faith is the instrument in which you receive Christ, union with Christ, and Christ is your justification because of his righteousness. So that's what he's saying. It's not this nominalist declaration of Christ weaving together and the Father draping onto the believer, but Christ himself is the garment because of this union with Christ, a real union. There is no receiving Christ's robes of righteousness without being received into Christ himself. He says the fact that imputation occurs through union with Christ observes, and then he quotes David Van Drunen. And then Van Drunen says it indicates that the righteousness imputed is not abstract or impersonal, but a personal righteousness that guarantees God's justice when he justifies. Believers are personally united to the one whose righteousness appears in their account. And many times the pushback is like this forensic fairy tale, but the other pushback would be the forensic fairy tale would actually be if God just considered your sincere obedience, your okay righteousness. No, God requires perfect righteousness, and really the only way that can happen is in Christ's righteousness, and really the only way that we can receive Christ's righteousness is through a realist metaphysic. And Parkinson makes account of that later in the article. He's like, that's really the only way that this even makes sense is through a realist metaphysic. Van Drunen says this is a real righteousness that believers claim as their own through an everlasting union with the one who was obedient unto death. Parkinson says union with Christ is how the great exchange happens. Just as Adam's failure was accounted to his posterity by virtue of their being in him, Christ's obedience is accounted to his posterity by virtue of their being baptized into him. The forensic nature of justification cannot then be at odds with the participatory nature of union with Christ. Some texts of Paul use forensic, some use participatory. Don't let either